Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Karim, and in this YouTube channel I share with you Excel tips and tricks based on my experience. Today I'm going to talk about the most common mistake I've seen amongst experienced Excel users. As you know, the most common entity or that we are dealing with in Excel is actually a table. And the table is a series of columns with the column headers on the top and then the data inside the rows. But did you know that Excel won't give you all its capabilities related to handling tables unless you explicitly declare about the table? It means that you need to tell Excel explicitly that what you have in front of you is actually a table and you want to deal with it as such, so that Excel will enable all the different functionalities and capabilities that it allows for easier handling of tables, and that will allow you to work much more efficiently and even in a more fun way. Let's see it practically on the computer.
So let's see how declaring tables explicitly in Excel can help us work much more efficiently. Here we have what looks like a table where we have 4 columns, and basically we have here some sample data of daily expenses or monthly expenses. So we have the date, we have the expense name or description, we have some categorization and the amount spent. Now, initially we could say that this is actually a table. We look at it as a table, but Excel doesn't see it like that. Actually, this is if we select this is basically what is called in Excel, it's a range, okay? And the range is defined by the top left cell and the bottom right one. So this is defined by A1 and D32. Now, whenever we want to deal with such data in a tabular way, we need to define it explicitly or declare it explicitly. And we do this by selecting any cell inside this range and then pressing on Insert and Table. Okay? Or if you can see here, there's a shortcut. So this is the shortcut that I mostly use during my day-to-day, which is Control-T. So I can go here, any cell, Control-T. You will see like a small pop-up here. It says, where is the data for your table? You can see that it's from A1 to D32. So it automatically identified, but we can obviously change it if it wasn't identified correctly by any reason. And here there's a small checkbox that asks, my table has headers. So basically I already have headers, so that's why it's selected. Otherwise, if it doesn't have headers and I unselect it, basically it will be adding headers automatically. Okay. So here I do have headers, so I click OK, and as you can see, it already gave some formatting, and I can obviously change it. So the first benefit of this is that now I do have an entity of a table. So this is an entity that is known to Excel, and what you will see here is that whenever I select any cell inside the table, I have this table tools tab that was added. Okay, table tools with design. Okay, so on the left side we can see that now there's a table and it has a name, and I can name it for easier reference later. So I can call it, for example, my expenses. Okay, this is just a sample name, and I will refer to it later on. Now, there's a full tab full of options. The simplest one might be that I can change the formatting. Okay. Now, basically, maybe one of the best benefits of converting this to a table is actually the easier navigation, and that means that whenever I want to select any column or row inside the table, or to select the full data, I have now additional options to do it in a more seamless and accurate way. So for example, if I want to select a column, usually we do it by clicking on the column letter here on the top, right? So we click like this, but what you see is that what Excel selected is actually the full column, which is also outside the range of the table. So here, look what I do now. If I scroll to the top of the column, okay, you will see that the arrow changes to a down arrow. The cursor changes to a down arrow, a black one, And if I click it now once, it will select the data only in the range of the table. If I click it again, it will include the column name as well. Clicking it again, it will also the data, and again is the including the column header. So it's like a switch on off to include the column header or not. Similarly, we can do the same for the rows. So if I want to select a row, instead of selecting the full row here, which includes everything also outside, and imagine that I can have more than one table here. Okay, so I want to select only the data inside here. I go to the leftmost cell, okay, and you can see if I scroll slowly, you see that the cursor changed to a right arrow, and if I click it, I can select like this. Okay. So this is a major benefit for me because it's something that can be always used. And also, if we go to the top left column, if we scroll to the top left corner as well, you see how it changes to a diagonal arrow. So if I click it once, it will select the whole data inside. And if I click it again, it will include also the column headers. Again, the data again is including with the column headers. Okay. Now, an additional very important benefit is that now I do have some contextual functionalities here, where, for example, if I want to, if I right-click any cell here inside, I will get additional features or additional functionalities. So, for example, I can click on Insert, and now it will allow me to select table columns to the left, for example. Okay, I'll undo now. Okay. Then insert table rows above, okay, and for example, if I want to delete, instead of deleting, I'll just copy this table. Okay, I'll copy it. I'll have another copy here. I'll look what it's called now. My expenses 3, because every table is unique, should have a unique name. So if I click like this, okay, let me try to delete this one, the telephone bill from this table. So if I click like this, I might get into a problem. I cannot even delete. Okay. Now, usually you would want to delete the data from a single table. So I selected this, or I can even select a single cell in the row. Look now, right-click, delete table row. As you see, the row was only the data from this table was deleted. Okay. So this allows much more precise and accurate navigation and editing in the tables. Now, one of the features here that you can see is actually table and convert to range. Basically, if for any reason, which I think are very, very rare reasons, where we want to remove the table definition of this range and put it back as a regular range like I showed in the beginning. So we can click on convert to range. It will ask us to confirm. Yes, okay. Now, another very important functionality, let me just delete this, everything here, for example, okay. Another important functionality is basically when we want to write formulas. It's much better and much more readable when we are dealing with tables that we defined explicitly. So, for example, I'd like to write like, I'll write a column called amount with tax, okay? I'll just try to add a column here, amount with tax. Enter. Good. Okay. So here, if I go back here, usually, sorry, this is not a table anymore. So, okay, so I'll turn it into a table again. I'll remove this one, okay? I'll turn it into a table again, Control T, okay? Now, if I write here amount with tax, okay, you will see that it expanded automatically. Let me try to change the design now. Yeah. Okay, so it expanded automatically. And now, let's say I want to add 10% of tax to this amount. So I can write equal, and then I can click, look what happens now. If I click on this, instead of writing in the regular way, like D2, right? Instead of referring to this as D2, look what happens. I click on it, it will write at amount, okay? And this is a special syntax for formulas whenever we are in tables, because it will mean bring me the value in the amount column from the same row I'm in. Okay, so basically I can write amount at amount multiplied by, for example, 1.1. Okay, And you can see immediately another feature, which is basically copying the formulas to the full column automatically. Okay, this is also another benefit of it. I will show you another thing, like another example of this expense category. Okay, I'll concatenate the expense in the category. Okay, so I can do like this, equal. I can even write it myself. I can open parenthesis at I want to concatenate the expense with the category. So I can say at, and you can see it even helps me identify the columns. So if I open square parenthesis at, okay, at this row, I press on tab, and then category expense, I close the parenthesis, and I can at, okay, which is the concatenation, and open parenthesis at category. Okay, enter. Okay, so it doesn't give any special meaning, but just for showing you the functionality itself. Okay, so this is another major benefit of when writing the formulas. So if I come back later on after, let's say, several months, and I want to see the formulas, it's much easier to read that basically this cell is actually the amount multiplied by 1.1. I won't see like several letters D4 and A3, etc. Okay. So this is another benefit. Now, if, for example, I can, let's say I calculate here the sum, okay, I can calculate the sum of the table here, okay, of the whole amount, okay. So I can immediately refer to this. For example, again, I can refer like this, click, okay. It will do the sum of table 3, okay, I didn't rename it to my expenses again. Remember, I removed the table. Now table 3 amount, so you can see that it doesn't have the at symbol, it's actually taking the full column. Okay, so if I click like this, sum, enter, okay, but the full amount I paid in this month is 1,565, and we can see it even here. Now, what happens now if I add, look what, this is the important part here, is that adding rows is actually dynamic. What does it mean? It means that if I now add another, I'll add another expense, February 1, 2018, so this is from last year. If I click enter, again, it will add a row automatically to the column. It expanded the range of the column, and now I can write anything, and let's say I'll write 50. So look here what happens. Automatically, it will immediately include the new row in the total. Okay, and this is a very important thing because I don't need to keep going to other formulas and other calculations to expand the relevant range. In the same way, if I click here, for example, I want to summarize now using a pivot table. So I insert pivot table. Now you can see that select table or range. So my source is actually table 3, which is this table. Or let me rename it. I prefer always having clear name to tables. Okay, now it's called my expenses. You can see here in the formula that it's called my expenses, so everything is changed dynamically. Now if I click on insert pivot table, you can see select a table range. So my expenses table was automatically detected as the source. Where I want to put it, let's put it on the existing worksheet. I'll put it here. Okay, and now I want to summarize per category how much I spent. So I can put the category in the rows, and I can put the amount with the values, let's say without tax. So this is the table, this is the pivot table. You can see that the total for every kind of category, and the total amount is 1,615. Now, if I go and I add an additional expense, let's say I'll just copy this row, I'll put it here. You can see that it automatically expanded. So basically, I added a row of 20, the amount of 20. So if I refresh here, okay, you will see that instead of 1615, it should be 1635. Let's try, refresh, 1635. Okay, so this is a very major benefit of this, because the source of the pivot tables and all other calculation becomes dynamic, and we don't need to keep changing the source of the pivot table. Okay, now the last benefit I want to mention, and I'm sure I didn't cover all the benefits. These are just some samples that let's say I face daily. So for example, if I save this file, so it's called expenses sample XLSX, okay, and now I create a new file and I refer to it. So I want to import the data from it. So you know what? Let me go and copy this table. I'll put another one here. Okay, I'll name it my expenses 2. Okay, and you can see that it's basically under the same sheet here. So it's under the I'll call it sheet 1. Okay, just for easy reference. So save. Now if I go to the other Excel file that I just created, I want to import the data. So I can go to the data and I can go here, get data from file, from workbook. Okay, now it will ask me where is that workbook. I just need to reference to it. Expenses sample. So this is my file, expenses sample. I click on it. So now it will read that file and it will try to identify all the objects or entities that there are inside. So here I can see all the possible entities and objects. And basically, if I didn't have the tables, you can see there is this table, my expenses and my expenses too. So I can select any of them, okay, and I can refer to it exactly to that data that I want. But if I select sheet 1, it will bring me all the data, including both tables, and then I need to identify it somehow, which becomes cumbersome, and I don't know if it's so feasible to use it. Okay, so once I define the tables explicitly, it's much easier to refer to them and import them, manipulate them, and transform all the data and create any reports according to them. Okay, so I hope that convinced you that you should always use the Control-T shortcut whenever you want to deal with something that looks like a table and the data that is organized as a table, and then you will see all these benefits coming to life.
I hope that you find this video to be useful, and if so, I would appreciate if you could write a relevant comment, and then you can subscribe by clicking on the icon that you will see on this side, and you can obviously see the other videos and the latest ones by clicking on the ones that show here. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.